This is The Roadmap with Lee Heisman.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Roadmap, exclusively here on ASBN.com. I'm Lee Heisman, and we bring you some of the brightest entrepreneurs on this show, the CEOs and the business owners who are climbing the ladder, scaling their businesses, and thinking about how one day to exit stage left. Today, guys, I have a very special guest, very good friend of mine, Jake Kauffman. Jake, welcome to the show.
Lee, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Jake, well, look, we spent some time when we met virtually, then we met in person, and I said, this gentleman needs to tell his story on our show.
Sure.
Talk about your experience, because you're a master in the coaching space, and I'm telling you, you do it my way. You not only incorporate your business coaching, but also health and wellness through your spectrum of work.
Yeah.
Talk about this.
Well, appreciate you again for having me, but the focus of my work is interpersonal. So I started my entrepreneurial journey in the healthcare technology space, and we grew very, very quickly. And as a result, all of our interpersonal issues were at the forefront, right? And these dynamics that continued to play themselves out in our relationship as team members that prevented the business from being as effective and as efficient as possible. And so that led me very quickly to recognize that people don't have business issues or business challenges. They really just have personal challenges that show up in the business. And so the more you work on the person and optimizing for the person, their beliefs, their identity, what drives their habits and their patterns of behavior, the better the business operates. And so that's what drove me into coaching, was just the more I worked on myself, because my journey started on working on myself. The more I did that, the more every area of my life, not just my business, started to work that much better.
Jake, so when you're working with clientele, you talk a little bit about their subconscious limiting their behavior and their actions. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So we all have a threshold in terms of what we feel safe to receive, including money, success, and opportunity. Anything beyond that, our system registers it as a threat. And so in that moment, what do we do in an effort to self-protect? We self-sabotage. It's what Gay Hendricks refers to as our upper limit in his book called The Big Leap. And so what do we need to do in order to help people move beyond their upper limit? Right? We have to optimize for their subconscious mind. Right? And so when you think about a business owner, what is the core of their business? Right? It's them. They're the core of the business. Well, what's the core of you? It's your inner work.
So, talk about this and give an example for our viewers. Give me a success story. Talk about the influence that you made and then the end result and how you quantify it.
Well, for context purposes, our subconscious dictates 90 to 95% of our behavior. So when we think about, and this is perfect that we're having this conversation, given that it's shortly after the first of the year, people have made New Year's resolutions, they've set goals for what they want to accomplish this year. But why do so few people actually end up accomplishing those things? It's because a conscious mind is what a person knows, but their unconscious mind is who they are. And that's responsible for what they do, their actions and their decisions. And so with my clients, when we optimize for their belief system and when we shift or elevate their identity, their actions and their decisions shift in alignment with a higher level being. And so one of my clients, for example, when we discovered her core fear, because we all have a core fear and core motivation based on our dominant disposition, or simply to say, our dominant personality. Well, when we uncover those things, when we bring them to the surface, right, then we can actually break through them, because now we're in control of them and not the other way around. And so with one of my clients, for example, we identified her core fear, which was holding her back from making effective hiring decisions and really feeling safe to delegate and to trust her team to delegate properly, that they would get the job done, that they would follow through. And so once we worked through that and the events earlier on in life that were responsible for creating that fear, then she was able to grow not just within herself, but the business went from, I want to say, about $600,000 in annual revenue to over $12 million in annual revenue.
Wow.
So the growth was fairly dramatic, because then the decisions, right, she's the CEO, that she made within the business allowed for her to hire effectively, delegate efficiently, which then made the business and the results in the business just follow.
So, what I found so intriguing, and I've been in the wellness space just for my own personal growth,
Yep.
but you really tie not just this mental, subconscious, psychological training to improve these CEOs.
Yep.
You tie in the physical space. You actually created an environment at your home in California that has all of the accoutrements that help someone really dial down. Talk about this, because I'm blown away and I want to go there.
Yeah, well, it's a really great way to support people in incorporating, right? The mental, right, is to tie it to a physical experience, right? Because we don't think our way into new ways of living, we live our way into new ways of thinking. And so when we tie both of those components together, that's when you really experience optimization on an interpersonal level that's going to be long-lasting and sustainable. And that's what we're really seeking to accomplish, is not just change, but long-lasting change. For example, with the New Year's resolutions, right, matter, over 90% of people will not end up accomplishing their New Year's resolutions or the goals that they set for themselves to accomplish that year. Why is that? Because we're trying to build on top of a faulty foundation. They don't have the beliefs or the requisite identity needed in order to accomplish those things. And so what typically tends to happen is they don't align their actions, their decisions, their behaviors that are necessary for them to accomplish those things. But when we do the work that we're talking about right now, it really is inevitable.
So talk about the environment you built. I know you talked about that hike you did in the canyon one time. Then you talked about your environment that you built at the property in California, where you bring men and women out to this experience to really go to the next level.
Well, one of the best ways to shift on an interpersonal level is to get out of your normal everyday environment. Right? You expose yourself to different environments, different beliefs, different perspectives, right? And when we have a perspective shift or a paradigm shift, it doesn't change the way we see the entire world, but it shifts a small part of our world, which then shifts everything else. And so part of our intention for taking people out into nature, challenging them, for example, with different physical endeavors, whether it be hiking, whether it be mountain climbing, whether it be cold plunge or cold therapy, which has become increasingly popular these days, we build a greater degree of mental resilience. And that's really key to being more successful.
So, your discussions today, which I always find it's so impressive, is it is about performance for an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur can qualify their performance with the growth you just experienced, right? You mentioned $500,000, $600,000 into a $12 million business.
Right.
That's easy. But a lot of your work also talks about the emotional part of someone, not just the psychological, but let's talk about the emotional piece, because you have a new book that's coming out.
I do. I don't have a release date yet, but
sure. But it's called Let Love In.
The book has already been released, actually.
Okay,
so
talk about
viewers
this.
can actually buy it. You can grab it on Amazon. It's called Let Love In by Jacob Kauffman. But the whole premise is that success is 80% psychology and emotion, and only 20% strategy. So yes, we do need a tangible action plan or roadmap, right? No pun intended, in order to help us accomplish our goals. But ultimately, what is the foundation of the actions that we take, the decisions that we make? It's how we feel internally, which is then supported by our belief system, right? So it's our thoughts that dictate our beliefs, that dictate our attitude, our energy, right? How we feel, our predominant emotional state. And it's that then determines our actions and our decisions. And Joe Dispenza, if you're familiar with his work, he talks all about this, right? How we feel consistently, that is what drives our decision making. And that's what gets us our results. And so when we shift how we think and therefore optimize for our beliefs, right, we shift how we feel. And when we do that, over time, our actions and our decisions are going to follow suit. And like I mentioned, at that point in time, a greater degree of success is inevitable.
So let's talk about success in every aspect. You talked about work, of course, the psychological, the emotional. We talked a little about the book, of course, and I want to know more about that before we wrap up in terms of what it's about.
Yeah.
But let's talk about not just letting love in, but letting in a significant other in your life that is also a coach.
Yeah.
And I wonder, is it Carrie?
Carrie, yep.
So I wonder, when you're at home with your significant other and you're both coaches, are you arguing about how to coach somebody how to wash the dishes, or like how does that work exactly?
Well, I saw this meme recently that says there's always one person in the relationship who loads the dishwasher like a deranged raccoon, and that's Carrie for sure. I'm much more meticulous in order to fit as much stuff in there
And do you
as
have
possible.
rules about coaching each other? You have to. I mean, this is your life, but you're living together.
Yeah, absolutely. No one wants to be in a relationship with a coach. They want to be in a relationship with a partner who is much more supportive and encouraging. And so we're always very quick to ask the other person, like, do you want my support or do you want me to just listen right now? Because sometimes all we need is just a person to listen so that we can actually shift through the emotions that we're experiencing around a particular incident. But that's something that we incorporate into our conversations is, do you want me to just listen or are you asking for support? And in those moments, it's much less about coaching necessarily or advice giving as it is about like, what I hear you saying is, and just being a mirror for the other person and reflecting back to them what they're saying, because oftentimes that's really all we need in order to come to the answer on our own. And that's really what any good coach is gonna how they're gonna approach supporting you, is really being that mirror, not telling you what to do, but simply guiding you and asking you powerful, evoking questions that lead you to your own truth.
Jake, see, this is why I need to be around you more. For my clients or people I work with, I just tell everybody what to do because I know the way it's got to go to get to the end result. So I need to work on more what you're talking about. So as we wrap up, how do people get in touch with you?
So the best way to interact with me, get in touch with me, is through my Instagram handle. It's I am Jake Kauffman, so Kauffman. Otherwise, you can pick up the book. You can get more exposed and more background to my story and the work that we do with clients and how we support them by picking the book up on Amazon.
Give a little teaser. Give me, if I pick up the book, what am I going to get out of this book?
It goes into deeper detail around my story, around how I ultimately came to this point within myself where I noticed that I was repeating various patterns across different jobs, different relationships. And although I didn't have language for this at the time, what I would say to my clients today is that the pattern always reveals the problem. And what that caused me to do is a level of, we'll call it self-introspection, soul searching, if you will, to determine, okay, what has gone into making up the whole of my personality that has me continue to repeat these various patterns? Because I think it was Ben Franklin who said it best. Most men, repeat the same year 75 times over and they call it a life. And so what I wanted was a life filled with growth and increasing abundance over time. Not just money or financial success, but love, hence the term or the title, Let Love In, and opportunity. And so the more I started to work on myself and the more I went down the path of self-growth, like I mentioned to you earlier, the more increasing success I started to experience in those areas. And so really it's a roadmap for growth for people who are hungry, not just to grow, but to attract more love, abundance, and opportunity into their lives.
Well, I was remiss today not having a copy here for you to sign for me, but I will see you again with my copy for you to sign.
I'll bring one next time.
Well, then you better bring one, because I will tell you, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Every time that I'm with Jake, I am growing. And that's why you surround yourself with people like this. So I would definitely get in touch with Jake. Thank you so much, Jake, for coming on the show.
Lee, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining today. I hope this show was as insightful for you as it was for me. We hope to see you again next week on another episode of The Roadmap.
Thanks for watching The Roadmap with Lee Heisman.